Pushkin.
From BBC Studios and Pushkin Industries, this is Big Lives. I'm Kai Wright.
I'm Emmanuel Dzotsi.
And on this show, we take a single cultural icon, somebody really cool, and we break down their life and their impact using the BBC's vast archives. And today, we are truly talking about somebody cool, one Sinéad O'Connor. How much do you know about Sinéad O'Connor?
I think of her on SNL talking about the Pope. This really strong-willed Irish woman on TV saying the truth that as a Catholic, my fellow Catholics didn't really want to talk about.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
That's what I remember.
Infamously tore up a picture of the Pope, blowing up the world, making a lot of people really angry. I think also for a lot of people, it's that plus, I think you immediately hear this.
'Cause nothing compares to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that voice in this song, Nothing Compares to You, 1990. It's just a massive, massive hit. And the music video from it, where, it's that tight shot of her face, her steely eyes staring out at you, that porcelain clear skin, and just about 4 minutes into this music video, the single tear running down her cheek. It's probably one of the most iconic moments in pop music. It's truly genius. And the album is full of great songs like this. But as you said, really her lasting legacy is probably that moment on SNL where she tore up a picture of the enormously popular Pope John Paul II. From that moment forward, she was forever branded as angry. And not just angry, at the time and for many, many, many years, people have been much less generous than you were in your memory of her as somebody who was routinely called crazy, actually the word crazy and insane, things like that. She was considered, there's one critic who horribly and infamously called her pop music's crazy lady in the attic. And I, for much of my life, probably agreed with those ideas about Sinéad O'Connor,
Oh, really?
Not on purpose, but it was so out there, I just assumed, yeah.
You saw her as like a provocateur almost?
Is beautiful and, with a great voice, but also just kind of doing crazy stuff. She dies at the age of 56 in 2023, tragically young. And so this is her sort of twin legacy, this humongous song, on this incredible album, and this horrific moment of being at the center of the culture wars in the United States. And the thing is, as I've rooted around in the archive about her, I have learned that I think it's just a very wrong idea about Sinéad O'Connor. She's a very different person. She's this soft-spoken, thoughtful person, right? Not this angry person. And we're going to hear a lot from her in this episode, but let me just play you one example from an interview in 1991.
Okay.
Are you getting fed up with people calling you controversial?
Yes, I am getting extremely fed up with people calling me controversial. I'm not controversial. I'm lovely and sweet and nice.
Which we're discovering today.
Yeah.
It's a sort of slightly different side. I'm sure that, though, a lot of people, just because of what they read in the papers, so they never get a chance to actually see you and hear you tell the truth about all the different things.
I've always thought that it was important to let people see that I'm a human being, and I've always wanted to be perceived by people as a human being, and therefore I have no problem with my life being in public because I want people to know who I am.
And I think what's interesting, Emmanuel, in that is she is not an ordinary person, actually. She's not. That's just not true. Her life is quite dramatic,
She's not normal, it turns
out. She's not ordinary. I didn't say normal, but she's not ordinary, and she's super duper intense. But if you actually listen to what she has to say, that does not make her angry and certainly not crazy. right? Like, she's intense, she's exceptional, she's dramatic. That does not equate to angry and crazy. Though, she does sometimes have some questionable opinions. But it's not angry and crazy. In fact, as I think you hinted at, Sinead O'Connor was right about a whole lot of stuff that she said in public that people got mad about in the 90s. And I think if you go through and actually listen to her, actually listen to what she has to say, this is just a fascinating woman. So I'm excited to dig through that with you when we get back. Welcome back. This is Big Lives. We're talking about Sinead O'Connor, and let's just go all the way back to the beginning.
Okay.
So Sinead O'Connor, born in 1966 in Dublin, Ireland, to a big Irish family. But at 8 years old, her parents separated, and she lives with her mom after that. And I have to tell you, she has a very traumatic childhood. She goes through a period of what she describes as intense abuse, both physical and sexual.
Oh, wow.
This is a big part of her public conversation throughout her life, Sinead O'Connor. She really talks about this a lot. You get the sense that she never really fully healed from it. She developed an agoraphobia that she dealt with for the rest of her life. There's an interview that she does a little later in her life where you can hear her talking about this experience. It's from 2021 on a program called The One Show. And it's actually just a couple of years before her death. And she's talking about her mom.
Because as a young child, I had spent time living in the garden, only being allowed to enter the house to wash the floor every day. I was a battered child. I don't, in honesty, know how I feel about her. I think that how I coped was telling myself she didn't know what she was doing. But in fact, had she lived, she'd be in jail now for what she did.
Living outside.
Yeah. Like, just really horrific abuse, it sounds like, So her mother was a kleptomaniac. It's not just shoplifting, it was a mental health issue. And at one point she was forcing Sinead to steal from collection plates at Mass. Just like really, really tough stuff. There's this infamous incident where Sinead O'Connor at 13 stole a rug from a hotel room as part of this. And she starts skipping school. So between the crimes she's getting involved with because of her mother's kleptomania and her truancy, never really going to school, she gets sent to a reform school at age 14, a place for, quote, bad girls.
Okay.
And this place is, of course, just becomes a whole new trauma for her. It's located in what used to be called a Magdalene laundry. Do you know what that is? Have you heard of this?
Magdalene laundry, as in Mary Magdalene?
As in Mary Magdalene.
We'll wash the sex worker out of you? That's the implication?
Yes, sir. I believe that is exactly the implication. Labor camps, essentially, for, women that are considered wayward in Ireland. They called them homes, but they were, prisons in my mind. And, we now know there's, with all kinds of abuse, we're talking mass graves have been found, that kind of thing. It's very, very dark. We used to have a version of these in the United States, PS, in the early 20th century. Yeah. It's not just Ireland. This was a global thing. The Magdalene laundries are closed now in Ireland, but this is where she spends a year and a half of her childhood at age 14 in one of these facilities. And so she's got these compounded traumas. But at the Magdalene Laundry, she did meet this nun who was a really important, sympathetic character in her life, a woman named Sister Margaret.
Okay.
So amid all of this pain and abuse, she finds this woman. There's one human, who's I see you and I'm going to help you. And it's Sister Margaret who takes Sinead for the first time to a punk rock clothing store. At age 14, buys her what Sinead refers to as her punk rock parka, this red parka.
Punk rock parka, okay.
She buys her first guitar. She buys her a book of Bob Dylan songs. She brings a guitar teacher in. So this woman, Sister Margaret, like sees young Sinead and like whatever talent is there and really who she is as, you know, this young woman, and encourages it instead of trying to stifle it. I was struck by how she described it in an interview I found from 1997. So this is on a show called Women's Hour, and she gives a pretty sober and thoughtful take on what she experienced throughout her childhood and how she struggled to process it.
The experiences of your childhood have been in the public domain, I think, for some time and are very familiar to people. Why was it important for you to express it in other areas than in your music?
I don't really know. I mean, I guess I was growing up and going through it, and it so happens I kind of did that in public. As it happens, you know, it would have been wiser to talk about it in a therapeutic situation than to talk about it in the public arena. But at the same time, I'm not sorry.
You said at one point that you were so sad you couldn't sing above a whisper.
Yeah, basically.
What did you mean by that?
Well, I couldn't. I actually physically couldn't manage to sing more than a whisper, you know, because I was miserable. I mean, obviously for a singer, your body is your instrument, so it's all to do with your emotions and your spirit and how you're feeling, you know what I mean? So it'd be like if you kept your guitar, you know, underwater for months and months and months and then tried to play it, you know what I mean? It wouldn't work.
But what brought you to that point?
I think it was inevitable. I mean, it was a kind of a snowballing effect. I think often with abuse, it can be that you don't, until you become an adult and all the things outside you start to become safe around you, you don't crack up until you're in a safe place enough to crack up. Do you know what I mean? That, like, once I knew kind of that my children were okay and, you know, I had a house to live in and I was making a living, then I guess it was safe to fall apart, you know. But when you're coming through it and growing up, you're so busy surviving that you don't have time to sit down and take stock of the shock of what it is you've been through, you know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so sad. Sorry, it's so sad.
Yeah,
I don't.
It is. It is.
Just that thing she said about like trying to play a guitar if it's been underwater.
Right.
It's yeah. I don't know. It's interesting because I don't know. I feel like you know, if this was like a music biopic, right? There's always some moment where it's like amid the difficulties and whatever, like the hero picks up a guitar and everyone is like, "Wow, she can really play." And I it seems like that's not Sinead O'Connor's path at all. Like that's not the moment that happens in this particular time.
Well, I mean, so, you know, I absolutely agree with you with the underwater guitar thing and I mean, it's so evocative. It really clearly shows you how this young person felt, you know, and she does use music as her therapy, you know.
Okay.
And I just think she is someone who is damaged, you know,
Right.
like she is someone who has mental health challenges as a consequence of her damage. And I think this is the first point that kind of made me revisit how I received her in the popular culture, because we're talking about her as though she's crazy, in part because she's being open about her trauma. You know?
Right. She's like just sharing the basic artifacts of her life.
Yeah, you know, and instead, you know, and the reaction to that was to say, "Oh, she's crazy," when in fact what she's saying is, "I went through a lot and I process it out loud, and that's who I am," you know. And I actually think it's beautiful as opposed to crazy. But in any case, like music, picking up the guitar that Sister Margaret gave her, you know, it does start to give her some place to put that energy, and you know, she pretty quickly starts to develop a talent for it. So music does very much become a place of therapy for Sinead O'Connor in dealing with all of this trauma, and she, you know, finds her way to a professional music career. She starts making music professionally at 17 in 1984. Her mother dies less than a year after she starts down this road in a car accident, actually. She's, you know, has an accident on an icy road and is killed. So now it's trauma on top of trauma with her mother, right? You know?
Yeah.
She says, actually, Sinead O'Connor says she felt a sense of relief
I bet,
at
honestly.
the time of her mother.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's horrific. You can imagine, I mean, you have these people in your life who both were sources of pain for you, but nonetheless are also places of love for you. And how do you process that? And how do you deal with their death? So she's facing that. She finally just drops out of school. She's 18 years old, signs with Ensign Records, moves to London, and fully commits to making music as her life. But right away, she starts to rebel against the music industry itself and all the expectations that it would put on her as a commercial musician. And some of that you can see in how she makes her music. So she writes an album called The Lion and the Cobra. She insists on co-producing it as she does all her work forever. That's a big part of her career. But the rebellion is also in just starting to really show off the version of herself that Sister Margaret had encouraged in her, back at 14 when she took her to the punk rock store.
At this point, musically, she's not making punk rock, right?
No, she never makes punk rock. One of the things about Sinead O'Connor is she never makes the same music twice, actually.
I was sitting here, I was honestly just wait, other than, I mean, I know that song Nothing Compares to You, but I don't actually know what genre she's in.
I think she would strongly reject the idea of being in a genre. This is another way in which she just refused to participate in commercial music, in which she became a star by accident almost, The music she's making at this time, it's kind of world music inspired. I think the main thing is the through line in her music from then all the way to the end is her voice, right?
Gotcha.
She picks up all kinds of different genres and things, but it's really that intense, singular, gorgeous voice, and it's working, but that voice, the label wants to look a certain kind of way, and she refuses to look that way from the beginning. And here's how she describes that in that 2021 program where she starts rebelling against what she's supposed to look like as a female vocalist.
The only role models you had as a girl were, the Virgin Mary. There wasn't an angry woman, and so they didn't know what to do with me. Record company boss said to me that he'd like me to start wearing high heels, grow my hair longer, start wearing short skirts. And of course, that wasn't me at all. I liked dressing like a boy. So then I went into this Greek barber to get a shaved head. And then I went straight back to the record company and just marched through there. And this boss was just horrified, But it was great because whatever you wore, you looked striking.
So this is 1988, first off, right?
Okay.
We think about the early 90s as this moment of all these female vocalists, exploding. So we're kind of on the front end of that. They're seeing her, the record company is seeing her as potentially part of that. She's absolutely refusing to participate in that.
Right.
But the album, The Lion and the Cobra, is successful. The album makes it to the US. She does Letterman, which is a big deal at that point to get on David Letterman.
Right. Especially out the gate, she immediately crosses the Atlantic.
Yeah, so it's we don't really, I think, remember that album, but it did succeed. She gets a Grammy nomination as Best Female Rock Vocal Performance, which I think is a weird category in the first place. But,
It sounds like a Netflix category.
Yeah,
like Best Female Rock Artist in a single.
There's just a lot of asterisks on calling you the best there, that feel tied to being a woman. But anyway, this Grammy nomination is our first sign of how she's going to handle commercial success. Because she shows up at the Grammys to perform this nominated song, Mandinka from that album. It's, again, 1988. She showed up and sang and protested by painting the logo of Public Enemy, the hip-hop band Public Enemy.
Yeah.
She kind of carved it into her shaved head and painted the image. If you're not familiar with Public Enemy, this is, Fight the Power.
Right.
This iconic, bold logo, Public Enemy, Hip-hop is taking off. The Grammys are not televising the award for rap. And Sinead O'Connor thinks that's unjust. And which she's right, and at all of that. But it's really what happens next, right? That is the story of Sinead O'Connor for most of us, because she then goes right back into the studio to make her next album, which the album title is, I love this again, I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got.
Do not want what I haven't got. Okay.
I do not want what I haven't got. It's a mouthful of a title that feels like already this woman is like wrestling with desire and like happy to be convoluted about it, you know. But honestly, it is full of just incredible music. If you go back and listen to it, you will remember a lot of these just really beautiful songs that she recorded on that. The album has made it onto a number of best ever album lists throughout history. But of course, the mega massive hit from this is the song Nothing Compares to You.
Right.
And I mean, I think probably most people listening can immediately hear her voice in this song. That beautiful, just almost like crystal bursting through. Song that Prince wrote originally, you know, performed for himself. Nobody remembers Prince's version.
I didn't know that Prince wrote that song. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's a Prince song. You know, nobody remembers that. And, you know, and it's the video that, you know, this is the time when music videos were really important. Do you remember the video?
I was going to say, I have never, I could not tell you about this music video. My only experience really with the Nothing Compares to You song is just the song. I don't think
it's just that voice.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in the history of music videos, it's up there with Thriller, you know.
Really?
Like, yeah.
Listening to the song, it's not an upbeat song. It's not like a banger in that sort of sense. It's like an emotional song, but the music video was that big of a deal?
Because the music video is as emotionally intense as the song. It is mostly this really tight shot of her face. She's still super young, beautiful, right? I mean, porcelain is the only way to describe her skin, right? She's got these steely eyes that are like locked into the camera. You can see her, it's not fully shaved, but very close cut hair. And she's just singing this hard song at you. And the iconic moment is about 4 minutes in, a single tear starts to roll down her cheek.
Oh, wow.
And she said she's thinking about her mom in that moment and all of the trauma. When she recorded the song, you know, she did it in one take. She went into the studio, recorded the song in a single take.
Wow.
That's what and immediately then like re-recorded the double tracking for it. And it all kind of makes you feel like on one level, maybe all the trauma was worth it. I kind of hate saying that, but it did produce this incredible piece of art, you know?
If like she was this person who, when she first started making music as a teenager, when she was first handling that guitar, was literally struggling to get out from under the water, all the stuff that she like suffered. This is that moment where like, oh no, this is her voice at full fruition. Like, she's finally really been able to express so much of what was really a horrible childhood.
Yeah. And you know what's really cool about it musically, too, from that perspective, is like one of her things is she refuses to allow engineers to compress her voice, right? So that's like using a compressor is like when you flatten things out so that like it makes the higher, when you're really high, like my voice breaks all the time, you know, when you do that versus when you're really low, and they use this compressor to try to make it even. She refuses that. She refuses to allow the pain and the rawness to be taken out of her voice. You know, she went in making that album, she went and left a note on the console, like no fucking compressors. It said,
don't touch my voice.
She knew exactly what she was doing, that she was trying to bring this trauma, trying to give this trauma some kind of meaning and make it beautiful. And I think
it's like the rawness of my voice is the point. Like that's the thing
is the point. Alongside its beauty, you know, like it's so beautiful and crystal clear and yet so raw at the same time. There's not a lot of vocalists who do that. And, the song breaks the world. You said at the beginning that you've kind of disassociated it with her, but it comes out in January 1990. It skyrockets around the planet. It's a number one in like more than a dozen countries.
Wow.
For weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. But then, this is the moment really where you start to see the separation between the celebration of that album and the way that she is remembered as somebody who is angry and combative.
Got it.
So the album is a triumph, as I said, and she starts the press rollout for it. And at every turn, she is fighting with the things someone is supposed to do to be a commercial success. So that May, the album comes out in January. May, she's supposed to be performing on Saturday Night Live. And she pulls out because she learns that the comedian Andrew Dice Clay is going to be the host. Do you remember this guy? Have you ever heard of Andrew Dice Clay?
No. Who is Andrew Dice Clay?
Okay, so way before Joe Rogan, way before all of that stuff in the 80s, Andrew Dice Clay was this really big comedian who he would say was a character he was playing, but the whole character was rooted in just being a horrific misogynist. Like, just really horrible stuff. Like, I remember being a teenage boy and we all thought it was funny, but it was targeted to like 12-year-old boys levels of comedy, And so she's like, no, I want to appear alongside Andrew Dice Clay.
What you've just described to me and what I know of Sinéad O'Connor, I cannot picture those two people in the same room.
You can't picture in the same room. Neither could she. So she gave up this huge promotional opportunity. She further gets 4 Grammy nominations for this, right? Rejects them all. She's like, I refuse your Grammys.
Like she refuses to show up or just refuses?
She refuses to accept them. She says that the Grammys are a commercial affront to art, is her perspective. She doesn't want your Grammys. This is actually, on that earlier album, her first album, she also got a Grammy nomination. That time she did show up. But then her biggest thing, at least to this point, right, is that summer, she refuses to allow the Star-Spangled Banner, the national anthem, to be played before her concerts. And so this happens particularly in New Jersey. Yeah.
Wait. Hang on. Just to back up. I mean, this is sounds so dumb because I lived in America for a long time, okay? And I moved here to this country as like a 12-year-old, like height of post 9/11, like energy. But I don't know that I've been to that many concerts in this country where they play the national anthem before the concert starts.
Same. It's hard to remember. We are a patriotic bunch, and it was fairly at the, 80s and back. It's just fairly standard. It's just like wallpaper. Like, you start things with the national anthem. There was a particular show in New Jersey, in that summer, and she refused. She refused to allow it, and as a stance, I don't want the national anthem played. Yeah. And, 25 years before Colin Kaepernick is kneeling and, to say I'm protesting police violence by refusing to stand for the national anthem. She's just banning it altogether. And people hate it. People are very mad about it.
Wow.
It becomes like...
she gets sucked into a cultural thing. Because she goes out in the public and makes a statement of just like, hey, just so you know, I'm never going to do this.
I'm never going to do this. And other stars make a thing out of it. So,
be for real.
Oh, wait till you hear this. Wait till you hear this. The person who makes the biggest deal is MC Hammer. MC fucking Hammer.
MC Hammer is playing the national anthem before his
Hammer
concert?
Time is a patriot and is mad at Sinéad O'Connor and her lack of patriotism. Never mind that she's Irish, not American anyway. But
that's the other thing about this. She's Irish. It's not
she's
even
Irish.
She doesn't even go here.
It's just nothing to do with her. But MC Hammer is so mad that he declares, I will buy her a plane ticket home. She can get the hell out of the United States. Okay, but listen. Here's how Sinéad O'Connor responds to this, and I'm just going to let her explain. Here she is on the BBC in 1991.
like the MC Hammer thing, him paying your plane ticket to get out of America. How truthful was that?
Well, that was true. What happened was that I shot my mouth off a little bit in America, and he shot his mouth back at me and said that if I didn't like America that I could get out and that he'd pay for my plane ticket, so I sent him the bill. And fair enough, fair play to him, he paid for it.
So she actually was like, okay, I'll go home, but as long as you pay for it.
That's right. She was like, sure, you know what? Here, give me some money. I'll do it, and this idiot had to do it, right? But it goes on, there's less funny versions, like Frank the Mob Sinatra threatens to beat up a woman.
That is wild.
Here, listen to what she says about it.
So I was quite shocked that people would make a huge big publicity thing out of it. Suddenly Frank Sinatra's threatening to kick my ass, which is quite a thrill. I know music is politics to a certain extent, but I don't think politics is music, and I really to this day object angrily to politicians being allowed into award shows and the Gallaghers going to Downing Street and then trying to tell us they're a cool band to the people.
I think it's funny, right, that she's going to be called angry, right?
Right.
Frank Sinatra's the one that wants to punch her. MC Hammer wants to deport her, but she's mad. This is supposed to be her triumphant moment. She's selling an album throughout all of this,
Right.
And this meme of her being crazy is starting to develop. And I have to say that the national anthem, of course, it's the tip of the iceberg. It is not nearly as big a deal as what's going to happen next. I'll tell you about that after the break.
Okay.
Welcome back. This is Big Lives. We're talking about Sinéad O'Connor, and we are at the moment that you remember, Emmanuel, from the beginning.
Right. The Saturday Night Live appearance.
The Saturday Night Live appearance. So it's 1992. Nothing Compares to You, as we've discussed, has been an absolutely monster hit. She immediately drops another album, which you probably don't remember. Certainly I didn't remember. It's a collection of jazz standards.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she really is all over the place genre-wise. She does what she wants.
She will not be pinned down. And so maybe that's part of why you don't remember it, but also you don't remember it because of the mess in which it appears, right? So in part because she's got this new album, she's again invited to perform on Saturday Night Live. This time she actually shows up. Okay. She does 2 numbers. And the second number is a cover of Bob Marley's song War. And she sings the song, and at the end, she looks at the camera and she says, and I quote, "We have confidence in the victory of good over evil." And she draws the word out like that.
Okay.
And then she holds up a picture of Pope John Paul II. She tears it into 3 pieces. She drops it on the stage. She takes out her earpiece and she walks off.
We find it necessary. We know we will win. We have confidence in the victory of good over evil. Fight the real enemy.
Did you hear the tearing? Could you
You
hear
can
it?
hear all of it. Also, the fact that it's a cappella, there's no other sounds.
Yeah.
And it's so silent afterwards. It's almost like you could hear a plane go overhead. It's that kind of level of whoa.
It's shocking. She's tearing up, and she holds the picture up. She holds the picture of Pope John Paul up to the camera, in front of her face, and tears it. It's shocking, and it is a nuclear bomb. Emmanuel, what drops into culture in that moment, this, in the history of culture war moments, this has got to be on a short list of biggest reactions.
Because at the time, Pope John Paul II is what's happening in the culture around him. How do we view him at this moment in time?
he's super popular. He's a big deal.
Right.
I mean, he's considered the person who's helped end communism. The Catholic Church is not a villain yet.
Right.
He's probably the most popular pope.
You're going to say by this point, people like my granny are like, this guy's going to be a saint one day.
That's right. And here she is tearing up the picture of his face. And it's considered career suicide, right? Entertainment Weekly and the Rolling Stone both call it that, career suicide. The New York Times frames it as self-destruction. This is where people start talking about her mental health, and phrases like another crazy outburst are coming up. She is really put on the edge of the culture at this point.
Yeah.
The next week, Joe Pesci goes on and hosts Saturday Night Live and makes a point of taking the torn up picture of Pope John Paul II. It's been taped back together and he shows it
what?
He's restored it. And he says, if I had been on the show at the time, I would have given her such a smack, and the audience like erupts. Again with the punch the lady.
Again with these like mob affiliated dudes threatening to hit this woman.
Threatening to hit Sinead O'Connor. It's just like, but people loved that response. Like it was there was a cheering response. Remember, this is monoculture era, like we're all watching the same thing.
Everyone's watching it.
And talking about it the next day.
Right.
And so it's a big deal. And it really undermines her. But again, what they don't talk about is what she's protesting. And I want to spend a minute thinking about that, right? So 1992 in Ireland, first off, this is a time when the Catholic Church controls everything, right? Like it has an enormous amount of power and sway over society, healthcare, education, social services. Women are not allowed to get a divorce still, right? If you had a baby out of wedlock, the Catholic Church could take that baby.
That was still a thing happening in Ireland at that point?
That was still a thing happening in Ireland. Again, this is the Magdalene laundries.
Right. That's a big part.
Are still open. They still exist.
Right.
They don't close to 1996. Contraception isn't fully legal. Abortion is illegal in all and every case. And all of this is behind, to Sinead O'Connor's mind, the ideologies of the Catholic Church is behind a lot of this. So that's the kind of thing that she's thinking about. And of course, also, this is a decade before the Boston Globe spotlight, investigation where we find out about all of the cover-ups of child sexual abuse that's happening in the church. But we know that was on Sinead O'Connor's mind. She spends all of her adult life protesting that, being really engaged as an activist in trying to hold the Catholic Church accountable for that. So all of this is what she's talking about. All things that nobody would question today, I think.
I mean, as I've said myself, and I'm sure people are probably sick looking at it now, but if the Virgin Mary were here, I believe she would be ripping up pictures of the Pope, and that's not all she'd be doing. I'd say she'd be pretty miffed, at what's been done to her as a symbol for all women. And what's been done to all women in her name.
And at the time, do people come to her and are like, what the hell was that? And does she explain it?
Not really. At the time, she's just beat up. And I think actually there's a good example of like just how this unfolded for her.
Right.
That will answer that question for you in the tape. Because just 2 weeks later, after her protest, she is at a concert. She plays a concert that's a tribute to Bob Dylan. So she's there to sing. Chris Christopherson is there to introduce her. Okay. And I just think the whole thing is interesting to listen to. So first, here's how Chris Christopherson starts.
All right, I got to tell you, I'm real proud to introduce this next artist whose name's become synonymous with courage and integrity. Ladies and gentlemen, Sinead O'Connor.
Wow.
Yeah, I saw your face, right? Like, you heard that, right? Like,
yeah.
This crowd's in competition with itself, right? Like, first, the people like Chris Christopherson are trying to be like, okay, she's brave.
Right.
And then that undertow of boos just crowds everything else out. And that's, I think, what's happening in the culture in this moment. Just that boo is just crowding everything else out. And she actually then reflected on that moment, that very specific moment at this Dylan concert years later in this 2003 interview with the BBC. So listen to how she talks about it.
Yeah, it was a fascinating noise, all right. I've never heard a noise like it in my life. It was actually the noise that made me want to barf, because noise can affect you in a certain way, but it's an incredible noise. There's this massive clash, as I saw it, between truth and lies, you know. The challenge there was, well, you know, are you going to let these people knock you off your course? And again, that's dread. So I had the choice in that moment, like, do I run off stage? Do I sing the song? Or what do I do? And as it happened, the noise was so loud that the song I was meant to sing wouldn't have got heard, and I thought that would look bad too. So what I chose to do was scream the Bob Marley song again that I had done on the thing, so that was fine. So I knew it was going to be sore, and I knew everyone was going to tell me, and as exactly happened, everyone writes about me and talks about me and discusses me for a good 12 years if I'm a fruitcake, and there's pictures of me appearing with mentally ill under them, you know. But you can't let the world, you know, make you frightened, and that's what you learn from Christianity.
Wow. So she goes out and she starts just basically screaming the song War over this din, this cacophony of competing boos and cheers.
Yeah.
And in the process, what gets taken away from that is that she's crazy.
That's right. It becomes yet another sort of brick in the wall of this out there artist who has mental health issues.
So just so I understand, like, the people who are really upset about this, what they see is just this non-conformist, out there woman who is just totally anti-establishment. She's against the national anthem. She's against all these things that we hold dear. Hey, she even hates the Pope. Like, and she's just mad to be mad. That's what they're thinking of it.
Yeah, and it's kind of a mob, honestly. And this is why I say, like, in the history of culture wars, you know, this is one of the exhibit A's where somebody steps into the culture. And, you know, it's been a long time since the 60s and when artists were people who had opinions about things and tried to engage.
Like, this is the 90s. It's just a different...
It's just, this is not what you expect of artists. And I think the reaction really is, it's a mob effect. You know, that's what I just think makes this particular performance at the Dylan tribute such a metaphor, you know? Like, there's an opportunity to have a conversation and be thoughtful about what's happening, but literally just a mob booing drowns out all nuance.
Especially because you'd think it would be a crowd that would be maybe more open-minded or sympathetic to a person they're going to hear. There's also a thing of this that I'm remembering. I'm like, right, her head is still shaved, right?
Yeah.
So I can almost hear sort of like a certain family values commentator just totally going in on this woman.
Right. It's also interesting to think her first album, it was fine. Like, for her to have the shaved head, it was fine for her to be a little edgy as long as she shut up.
Right.
You know? And then once she speaks, all of her edginess and what she looks like as a woman is proof that what she's saying isn't a thoughtful critique, but rather proof that she's crazy and angry. Because the BBC also talked to Chris Christopherson about this moment, and I think it's useful to hear his perspective on it. Because we forget Chris Christopherson is also a pretty political guy, you know. He would later oppose the Gulf War and the Iraq War. He supported Palestinian freedom. So, you know, he was celebrating Sinéad O'Connor, and here's what he said.
The night started out very magical. I was around backstage with all these wonderful performers that you respect, you know, that were all there to honor Bob Dylan. You know, Tom Petty and Neil Young, you know, and it was very righteous. And that's why it was such a shock when they started booing Sinead. It was like a bucket of water in the face. It was just going from feeling like you're surrounded by a bunch of co-revolutionaries and brothers in arms to coming down like repressors of freedom, you know, and I was kind of stunned. And I got out there and I said, don't let the bastards get you down. And she said, I'm not down.
And just to give you the visual, what he's describing there is, you know, he came out on stage when they were booing her and put his arm around her. Yeah, you know. And that's when he tells her, you know, don't let the bastards get you down. And she says, I'm not down. And that's when then she turns and performs, as she describes, the Bob Marley song.
I mean, I'm glad that she had Chris Christopherson there
Yeah.
for her. But that's still such an incredibly awful experience.
That album that she was promoting at that time, Am I Not Your Girl, right? Commercial disaster. You know, I don't remember it. You don't remember it. Many radio stations refused to play it. It was banned outright by some. She does an album after that. Also, bomb, you know. It just, she disappears. Her career is, in fact, torpedoed at this point. And the thing is, she is someone who is struggling with mental health. That's the thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like, all of this discourse, the discourse just becomes that she's crazy, you know, but she is struggling with mental health, as she would be given the trauma that she has experienced. And much later, you know, on her 33rd birthday, she'll actually attempt suicide. She was at one point diagnosed with bipolar disorder. That was later changed to PTSD. But the point is that the world had been hard to her, and she tried to confront that, and she tried to make art about it. But none of that had anything to do with her politics. You know, like, that she can have these mental health challenges and have these politics, you know? They aren't in opposition to each other, but because they were able to dismiss her as crazy, they were also able to dismiss all the things that she had to say.
Yeah.
And despite all the trauma and all the difficulty of her life, she had a clarity I admire and an envy about this one thing, you know? Like, yes, I'm a talented singer. Yes, I have this beautiful voice, but I am not interested in using it to make commercial fame. I am interested in using it to be an activist about issues I care about, whatever will happen as a result. And ultimately, that's the life she led.
Thank you for taking me on that journey, man.
Thank you for coming on that journey with me. It's much more visible to me, and I lived through it as well. And so, you know, my belated apologies, Sinead O'Connor, for thinking about you in the way that the world wanted me to think about you. And thank you for giving me the inspiration to think about how I actually want to use my voice in the world. Well, who you got for me next, Emmanuel?
So we're actually going to do something a little bit different from what we've done, which is next week you're actually going to hear about two people who are really inextricably linked to each other.
Okay.
Let me play just this first one for you.
Like we trained with the youth team.
Yeah? So what type of training were they putting you through?
Like chipping the ball to each other and matches.
Is it the kid or is it the adult?
It's the kid.
It's the kid.
It's the kid.
Oh,
It's the
okay.
kid.
All right.
Yeah. All right, let me play you another one.
People still do think I'm snooty. I think a lot of the time it's because, you know, I don't smile a lot, you know, in pictures, that kind of thing.
Nope. I got nothing for you.
All right, I'll give you one last one. So I want to know, this is the most confusing quiz.
You know, I didn't even have to meet her. I see her on the telly and I just wanted to meet her. You know, I just fancied her. So it was just a case of getting together then.
I'm deducing from the Britishness and the fact that the World Cup is here and that there's something about soccer, I got a guess of who these people are.
Amazing. Well, yeah, we'll get to it next time.
Big Lives is a production of BBC Studios and Pushkin Industries. It's hosted by me, Kai Wright, and Emmanuel Dzotsi. From BBC Studios, our producer is Emma Wetherill. Our archive producer is Samira Chowdhury. Executive producer is Annie Brown. The sound designer is Melvin Rickaby. Production coordinator is Galen Davis Connolly. And production manager is Mabel Finnegan Wright. Our apprentice is Amy Woods. From Pushkin Industries, our executive producer is Constanza Gallardo. Producer Daphne Chen. Legal advisor Jake Flanagan. And marketing by Morgan Ratner and Jordan McMillan.